He had spent countless nights staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city, feeling the weight of a longing that never seemed to fade. Every day felt like a repetition, a routine colored by the emptiness of missing someone he had yet to meet. His heart held a space reserved for a love he could almost sense but could not touch, a feeling that life itself had been preparing him for something extraordinary. Even in the midst of loneliness, there was a strange comfort in waiting, as if hope itself had become a companion. Through the years, he had faced moments of doubt and heartbreak, times when it seemed the world was conspiring to keep him from what he desired most. Yet amidst the uncertainty, he learned to trust in timing, believing that some things in life could not be rushed. Each disappointment became a quiet lesson in patience, and every passing day strengthened his resolve to hold on to hope. The idea that love was worth waiting for became a guiding principle, even when life seemed determined to test his faith. Memories of the past often visited him, vivid flashes of fleeting connections and near encounters that had once seemed ordinary, but now felt like signs leading him toward destiny. He remembered smiles that lingered too briefly, conversations that ended too soon, and moments that hinted at something more profound than chance. These memories, rather than bringing sorrow, shaped his understanding of love as something sacred, a force that required both patience and courage. Each memory became a thread in the tapestry of his anticipation, weaving a story only he could feel but not yet fully see. There was a quiet strength in his waiting, a resilience that did not demand recognition or praise. It was in the way he navigated life calmly, with an inner serenity that others often mistook for indifference. But beneath that composed exterior was a heart that had endured, learned, and grown through every lonely night and every unanswered question. His patience was a testament to his depth, showing that true strength often lies in the ability to wait without losing hope or surrendering to despair. Small signs began appearing in his life, subtle and almost mystical in nature, as if the universe itself was nudging him closer to what he had been longing for. A song that reminded him of something he had forgotten, a fleeting encounter with a stranger who mirrored a feeling he recognized, or a place that suddenly seemed charged with possibility, all hinted at a change on the horizon. These moments brought a renewed sense of anticipation, a reassurance that the wait was not in vain, and that the presence he longed for was gradually making its way toward him. The day she finally appeared was unlike anything he had imagined. It was not a moment of grand spectacle, but a quiet, profound arrival that made his heart ache with relief and joy. The world seemed to pause as their eyes met, and in that instant, all the years of waiting, all the doubts and dreams, converged into a single, undeniable truth: she had come. The meeting was charged with emotion, a blend of wonder, recognition, and the deep, unspoken understanding that they had both been searching for this moment all along. As they spent time together, the bond between them deepened effortlessly. Words flowed easily, yet silence was never uncomfortable, as if they had always understood one another without explanation. They shared their fears, dreams, and the parts of themselves they had kept hidden, finding solace in mutual vulnerability. In her presence, he discovered a completeness he had only imagined in his dreams, a connection that transcended time and circumstance, confirming that the journey of waiting had led him to something infinitely worthwhile. Reflecting on his journey, he realized that waiting had not been a period of emptiness, but a transformative experience that prepared him to recognize and cherish the love he now held. The patience, the hope, and the quiet faith had shaped him into someone capable of embracing a love so profound and lasting. And in that realization, he found not just the joy of companionship, but an inspirational truth: some loves are worth every moment of waiting, and when the time is right, they arrive to fill every empty corner of the heart. He had learned early on that life rarely unfolds according to plan. Each setback and disappointment tested his resolve, but he clung to a quiet belief that the right things always arrive in their own time. Heartbreaks had come and gone, leaving him bruised but wiser, teaching him that patience was not passive. It was an active choice to trust in the unfolding of life. He carried this faith like a lantern in the dark, a steady glow that guided him through moments when hope seemed fragile. Even in the face of doubt, he refused to surrender. Friends and strangers questioned his waiting, urging him to move on or settle for something less. But he knew that some loves are not measured by urgency or convenience. His heart understood the value of timing, that rushing toward love could destroy its magic, while waiting allowed it to grow organically and profoundly. Each day he waited reinforced his belief that love is not a possession, but a destiny to be discovered when the moment is right. There were days when loneliness pressed against him, like a heavy weight, when the ache of unfulfilled longing made him question everything. Yet, even in these moments, he felt a strange peace. It was the peace of someone who knows that life's most beautiful gifts often arrive quietly, without fanfare, and at exactly the right moment. He learned to sit with the uncertainty, to find comfort in the waiting itself, and to trust that the universe had its own rhythm for love. The little signs along the way kept his faith alive. A chance encounter, a familiar song, or a fleeting smile reminded him that he was not alone in his journey. These moments seemed small, almost insignificant, yet they whispered promises of what was to come. Each sign became a reassurance that his patience was not wasted, that the world was gently guiding him toward the person he was meant to meet. Through all the waiting, he cultivated strength he never knew he had. He became resilient, capable of facing disappointment without losing hope, and gentle with his own heart, even when it felt heavy. This strength was not loud or boastful. It was quiet, steady, and unshakable. It allowed him to keep believing in something intangible, trusting that timing, though unseen, was always working in his favor. He often reflected on the lessons learned from past heartbreaks. Every failed connection, every moment of longing, had prepared him to recognize true love when it finally arrived. He understood that patience was not merely about waiting, it was about growth, self-discovery, and readiness. His heart had matured, becoming fertile soil for a love that would flourish fully, free from haste or compromise. When she finally entered his life, he felt the profound truth of his faith. It was not a dramatic or sudden event, but a gentle, undeniable arrival that filled every corner of his being. In her presence, he saw the culmination of years of hope, resilience, and trust. The faith he had held onto so steadfastly was rewarded, and the depth of his patience made the joy of their meeting even more poignant and unforgettable. Looking back, he realized that waiting had been a gift, not a burden. It had allowed him to grow, to understand the true meaning of love, and to appreciate the miracle of perfect timing. His journey became a testament to the power of faith, showing that love, when embraced with patience and trust, arrives in its own perfect moment, transforming a life in ways that cannot be hurried or forced. He often found himself lost in memories of the past, moments that flickered like old photographs in his mind. Each memory carried a weight, a whisper of what could have been, and yet it never filled him with regret. Instead, these recollections became lessons, shaping his understanding of love in ways he could not have learned otherwise. He remembered fleeting glances that lingered a second too long, conversations that ended too soon, and moments of connection that seemed ordinary at the time, but now glowed with significance. There were times when he had almost touched love, only for it to slip away like water through his fingers. He remembered the thrill of meeting someone who felt like a kindred spirit, only to have circumstances pull them apart. These near misses were painful, yet each one deepened his resilience, teaching him that true love is not always immediate, and that the heart grows stronger through longing and patience. The ache of almost losing someone became a quiet teacher, showing him how to recognize the value of what was truly meant to be. He recalled nights spent wondering if he was missing signs or opportunities, questioning whether he had been too slow or too cautious. Those moments of self-doubt were heavy, yet they also nurtured his emotional awareness. He learned to listen to his instincts, to recognize when connection was genuine and when it was fleeting. In reflecting on these memories, he began to understand that love requires discernment and courage, and that not every encounter is meant to last, but every encounter leaves a mark. Some memories carried the warmth of intimacy he had not yet realized, moments of laughter, shared dreams, and unspoken understanding. They reminded him that connection is more than physical presence. It is the way souls recognize each other in subtle gestures, fleeting smiles, and quiet silences. Even when those moments ended, they lingered in his heart, shaping the way he approached future relationships with greater depth and sensitivity. Each memory became a building block for the love he was destined to experience. He often thought about the lessons embedded in heartbreaks, the way pain had refined his sense of what mattered. The losses he endured were not failures but guidance, helping him distinguish between temporary infatuation and lasting connection. These memories taught him patience and the value of emotional investment, reminding him that meaningful love is never rushed and must be nurtured with care. The scars of the past became reminders of his growth, symbols of resilience rather than sorrow. Even memories of unfulfilled desires held a quiet beauty. They reminded him of his capacity to hope, to imagine a future filled with love, and to believe that waiting was not in vain. Each nearly missed connection, each love that ended too soon, had prepared him for the moment when the right person would finally arrive. He began to see that his past was not a series of failures, but a carefully woven path, leading him to someone who would truly complement his heart and soul. Sometimes he would revisit these memories with a sense of awe, realizing how each encounter, each fleeting connection, had shaped the person he had become. They had taught him empathy, patience, and the importance of listening not just to words but to emotions, both his own and others. He understood that the love he sought was not just about finding someone. It was about being ready to give and receive it fully, and the past had been preparing him for this readiness in every subtle, unforgettable way. Through it all, he embraced his memories as a part of his journey rather than a weight to carry. Each recollection reminded him that love is rarely straightforward, and that every near miss, every fleeting moment, is a piece of a larger story. Those past encounters had fortified his heart, shaped his understanding of connection, and prepared him to recognize the arrival of someone extraordinary. In remembering the past, he found hope, resilience, and a deeper appreciation for the love that was still to come. He carried himself through life with a calmness that often went unnoticed, a quiet presence that masked the storm of emotions he had learned to navigate. To the outside world, it seemed as if he was unbothered by the passing of time or the absence of love, but inside, every day of waiting had deepened his character and understanding of life. His strength was not loud or demanding. It was the kind that emerges from endurance, reflection, and the ability to remain hopeful even when circumstances offered no guarantees. Even in moments of solitude, he felt the weight of his own patience. Yet he never resented it. He understood that strength is not about immediate gratification or control over outcomes. It is about holding steady in the face of uncertainty. Each day he waited. He earned a resilience that allowed him to face disappointment without despair and to maintain faith in the unseen forces guiding his journey. There was a dignity in his quiet endurance, a sense that he was learning to value depth over haste and substance over surface. People often mistook his patience for passivity, assuming that he was resigned to a lonely existence or lacked ambition. Yet, in truth, his patience was an active, deliberate choice, a conscious expression of hope and confidence in life's timing. It required courage to wait without certainty, to love without immediate reward, and to trust that the journey itself held meaning even before the destination appeared. This silent strength became the foundation for all his relationships, shaping the way he connected with others and deepening his capacity for empathy. There were moments when temptation or frustration threatened to sway him, when the ease of giving up or settling for less beckoned like a comforting illusion. Each time he reminded himself that true strength lies in endurance, not surrender, and that love worth having is rarely simple or instantaneous. These internal battles strengthened his resolve, teaching him that patience is not weakness, but a deliberate and powerful expression of integrity and self-respect. His silent strength was also reflected in his ability to listen, to be present for others without imposing, to offer support without expectation. He had learned that real power often lies in gentleness and understanding, in the capacity to remain calm when the world pressures you to react impulsively. His emotional maturity was evident in the way he handled both joy and disappointment, embracing each experience as a step toward the deeper fulfillment he knew was coming. Over time, he realized that waiting itself had become transformative. It taught him lessons about humility, compassion, and the value of inner peace. By not rushing or forcing outcomes, he allowed life to unfold naturally, discovering that the calm heart often perceives truths that impatience obscures. His patience became a mirror of his character, showing that strength is not measured by what is visible, but by the steady, unwavering commitment to what is right and meaningful. Even when others questioned or doubted him, he remained steadfast, trusting in his own journey and the timing of fate. He understood that validation from others was unnecessary when he had cultivated such deep self-trust. His silent strength inspired those around him, not through words or displays, but simply through the consistency of his character, the serenity of his demeanor, and the depth of his conviction. In the end, his quiet strength became the cornerstone of his greatest triumph, the arrival of the one he had waited for. Because he had nurtured patience, resilience, and emotional depth, he was ready to recognize and embrace love fully when it appeared. His waiting had not been idle. It had been the very act that prepared him for the joy and fulfillment that would finally walk into his life, proving that true strength often speaks softly, yet carries the power to change everything. He began noticing things that felt almost too coincidental to ignore. A song would play on the radio at the exact moment he needed comfort, or a phrase he had been thinking of appeared in a book he randomly opened. At first, he dismissed these moments as mere chance, but as they continued, a strange sense of anticipation started to grow within him. Each small sign seemed to whisper that something, or someone, important was drawing near, and his heart quietly took note of each one. Even the simplest encounters began to feel meaningful. A stranger's smile, a chance meeting at a cafe, or a fleeting glance from across the street would linger in his mind long after it happened. There was an inexplicable feeling that these small moments were not random, but rather threads weaving together a larger tapestry. He began to realize that life had a subtle way of guiding him, using tiny gestures to prepare him for a moment he could not yet fully imagine. Nature itself seemed to mirror his growing anticipation. The way the sunlight filtered through the trees at just the right angle, the gentle rhythm of rain tapping against his window, or the sudden appearance of a butterfly in the park, felt like messages meant only for him. These occurrences brought a sense of calm reassurance, a feeling that the universe was quietly orchestrating events in his favor. Each small detail became a beacon of hope, reminding him that he was on the right path. Even dreams began to carry a weight he had never felt before. Vivid images of someone he had not yet met, places he had never been, and conversations that seemed real all lingered in his mind. These dreams were subtle and fleeting, yet they left impressions strong enough to affect his waking thoughts. He began to sense that his subconscious was attuned to something greater, sending him signals that the person he had been waiting for was closer than he realized. Sometimes, the signs appeared in coincidences that made him pause in awe. He might hear her name mentioned in passing, or notice a familiar pattern in his surroundings that seemed almost like a message directed solely at him. Each coincidence was small, easily overlooked by anyone else, but to him they felt like gentle taps on the shoulder, drawing his attention toward an unseen future. He began to trust these moments as guides, subtle but powerful confirmations that destiny was quietly at work. Even in mundane routines, there were hints of something extraordinary approaching. A delayed train might lead him to a meaningful conversation, or an unexpected detour could place him in a place he had long imagined. Over time, he became more attentive, learning to notice the signs that previously would have slipped by unnoticed. These small occurrences accumulated, creating a sense of momentum that filled his life with quiet excitement and expectation. The signs often came in ways that touched him emotionally, stirring feelings he could not easily explain. A familiar scent in the air, the way sunlight fell on a street corner, or the sound of laughter in the distance brought with it a sense of deja vu and recognition. It was as if the world itself was speaking in whispers, nudging him closer to the moment he had been waiting for. Each sign strengthened his belief that his patience and hope were not in vain. Ultimately, these subtle signs became a language of their own, a way the universe communicated that she was on her way. They were not dramatic or forceful, but quiet, persistent, and full of meaning for someone who had learned to pay attention. He realized that the journey itself, the waiting, the noticing, the small awakenings, was preparing him for her arrival. Every sign was a reminder that love, when it comes at the right moment, is preceded by its own gentle, mysterious guidance. The day finally arrived when their paths crossed, and it was as if the world had paused for a single, perfect moment. He remembered the exact feeling in his chest, a fluttering mix of excitement, relief, and disbelief. All the years of waiting, all the lonely nights and quiet hopes, seemed to converge into this instant. It wasn't just a meeting, it was the culmination of every small sign, every instinct, every dream he had held on to. He noticed her before he realized he was staring, as if she had stepped out of his dreams and into reality. There was something in the way she moved, the softness in her expression, and the warmth in her eyes that drew him in instantly. He felt an overwhelming recognition, a sense that he had been waiting for this person his entire life. It was as if time itself had arranged their meeting with perfect precision, and nothing else mattered in that moment. When their eyes met, the world around them seemed to blur, leaving only the two of them in focus. The ordinary sounds of the city faded away, replaced by a profound silence that spoke louder than words. He felt an inexplicable pull, a connection that went beyond the surface, beyond physical attraction. There was an undeniable sense of familiarity, as if their souls had known each other long before this day. As they approached each other, Every hesitation vanished, replaced by an effortless ease. Conversations began without the awkwardness that often accompanies first meetings. Every word felt natural, every smile genuine, and every gesture seemed to fit perfectly into a rhythm they had somehow known all along. It was the kind of encounter that writers try to capture in novels, but even fiction could not fully convey the intensity of what they were feeling. He could feel the weight of all the waiting lift from his shoulders in that very instant. All the patience, all the faith in timing, all the small signs and coincidences they had led to this. Relief mingled with joy, and he realized that the anticipation had only made this moment more powerful. The love he had imagined for so long was finally tangible, real, and more beautiful than he had ever dared to hope. Every subtle detail seemed magnified: the way her hair caught the sunlight, the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her hand when it brushed against his. He noticed everything with an intensity born of longing, recognizing that this was what he had been waiting for all his life. It was not just attraction, it was a profound awareness that this encounter was the beginning of something eternal. Even the simplest exchange carried deep meaning. A shared glance, a gentle smile, or the way their hands brushed together created an unspoken understanding between them. It was as if they were speaking a language that required no words, a language of recognition, connection, and destiny. Each moment reinforced the idea that this meeting was inevitable, that every day of waiting had been leading to this exact point. By the end of that first meeting, he felt a clarity he had never known before. He understood that love is not about rushing or forcing. It is about timing, patience, and trust in the unseen currents of life. In her presence, he felt complete, as if the missing pieces of his heart had finally found their match. That first meeting was not just a beginning. It was a confirmation that everything he had waited for had been worth it. From the very first moment they began speaking, there was an unspoken understanding between them that transcended words. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, touching on hopes, fears, and dreams that neither had shared with anyone else before. It was as if they had known each other in another lifetime, and every word they exchanged resonated with a depth that felt both familiar and astonishing. This was not a superficial connection. It stirred something deep within their hearts, a recognition that could not be explained by chance alone. As they shared stories of their pasts, they discovered mirrored experiences, moments of joy and sorrow that reflected one another in uncanny ways. He realized that every struggle he had endured, every lesson he had learned while waiting, had prepared him for this very person. She, too, seemed to recognize the purpose behind her own journey, understanding that all her own experiences had led her to this meeting. It was a bond forged not in haste, but through the slow, careful shaping of their lives. Even in silence, the connection was palpable. Sitting across from one another, their eyes met and held, and in that quiet, there was a conversation far deeper than words could convey. He felt her presence like a steady, comforting rhythm, and she felt his as a grounding, familiar force. Each shared glance carried meaning, and every unspoken thought seemed to align, as if the universe itself had arranged this meeting with precision. Their laughter came easily, light and unrestrained, yet beneath it lay a profound understanding of one another's vulnerabilities. They could be themselves completely, without fear of judgment or rejection, and the honesty between them deepened their bond even further. It was rare, almost sacred, to find someone with whom authenticity flowed so naturally, and both felt a quiet awe at the rarity of this connection. Even small gestures became significant, each touch or shared movement conveying a sense of belonging. A hand brushing accidentally against the other's, a subtle smile, or a thoughtful pause spoke volumes about their mutual understanding. They found that words were often unnecessary. The emotional and spiritual bond between them communicated truths that language alone could never capture. As the hours passed, they discovered an uncanny synchronicity in their thoughts and feelings. Ideas, emotions, and dreams seemed to echo each other, as though they were two halves of a whole finally reunited. Every revelation, every shared insight, reinforced the notion that this connection had been cultivated over years of waiting, shaping their hearts to recognize and embrace one another fully. He realized that the journey of waiting had not been wasted, it had been essential. Each period of longing, each moment of doubt, had deepened his capacity for empathy, patience, and understanding, qualities necessary for a connection of this magnitude. Without those years of preparation, he could not have recognized or nurtured the profound bond he now shared with her. By the end of the day, it was clear that their connection was not fleeting or superficial. It had the depth and permanence of something meant to last a lifetime. They had found in each other a mirror of their own hearts, a companion who understood their soul in ways that no one else could. The bond they shared was a testament to the beauty of patience, timing, and the enduring power of love. They began to open up to each other slowly, revealing parts of themselves that they had carefully guarded for years. At first, the conversation was tentative, filled with pauses and careful words, but as trust grew, their walls started to crumble. He shared fears he had never voiced before, moments of self-doubt, and the vulnerabilities that had made him hesitate in past relationships. She listened with patience and understanding, never judging, only creating a space where honesty felt safe and natural. In turn, she revealed her own struggles and dreams, the hopes that had sustained her, and the disappointments that had shaped her. Each story, each confession, felt like a bridge between their hearts, connecting them on a level far deeper than physical attraction. They realized that by allowing themselves to be truly seen, they were creating a bond that could withstand any challenge, one rooted in understanding and empathy. The sharing of fears brought a strange sense of relief, as if speaking them aloud released their weight. He felt lighter, knowing that his vulnerabilities were not only accepted but embraced. She, too, found comfort in his willingness to listen without judgment, and this mutual openness strengthened the trust that had been quietly building since their first encounter. Each revelation made the connection feel more authentic and rare, deepening the emotional intimacy between them. They began to discuss their dreams for the future, not just in vague terms, but in intricate detail, the ambitions, the hopes, and even the fears of failing to achieve them. Sharing these aspirations allowed them to see each other as more than a romantic presence. They were collaborators in each other's emotional growth. He admired her determination and resilience, and she found inspiration in his patience and faith. Through these conversations, they started to imagine a life together built on mutual respect and encouragement. Even the small, seemingly trivial confessions added layers